The United States will never be a socialist country because you cannot have socialism on stolen land. What does this mean? The disposal and stewardship of the land and the resources therein rightfully belongs to the indigenous nations from which it was stolen. The descendants of European settlers are rightfully considered by indigenous people to be the descendants of invaders. These invaders then brought my people, Africans, here to the United States, well, long before it was the United States, the British, Spanish, French colonies, what have you, to work for them on this land that they stole. Allowing invaders to decide what happens to your land as an indigenous person is like allowing someone who robs you to offer you financial advice. These two contradictions, the stolen land and the stolen labor contradiction, are the primary ones, the contradictions, the issues, the problems around which all others in this country ultimately revolve. The indigenous will get their land back, and my people will hold this country to account for slavery and the grisly, bloody aftermath. The revolution in this country will be around. These two contradictions in this country will no longer be the United States because these contradictions are antagonistic and will destroy it. The states that come out of what was once the United States will definitely be socialist. So, what will happen to the descendants of the invaders? Honestly, that's up to the colonized people. They certainly won't be leading any communist revolution because history has shown us that settlers cannot make any revolution besides a fascist one. Communism means giving up the land that they stole, and that is not going to happen voluntarily. They will, of course, go for social democratic reforms, but not revolution en masse. My guess is that the numbers of these descendants of invaders will already be diminished by the violence of the revolutionary process because they will insist on fighting it, and they will, of course, suffer the fate of all counter-revolutionaries. Many will also flee, and some will fight for revolution because they see the writing on the wall and they know that it is right to rebel against reactionaries. It is right to rebel to get your land back. Not all that controversial if you've studied communist theory, right? Well, some who have apparently not studied communist theory have quite a bit to say. So, let's see. We have one comrade who's supportive. The white communists pushing back against this as if it's not as simple as aligning yourself with the indigenous people of this country and the African Americans. I prefer the term New Africans, but I digress. You get behind them and you fight against the other white settlers that choose to uphold the American settler state. All right, good deal. Then you have a trot. How can I tell that they're a trot? Because they call themselves a Bolshevik Leninist. That basically means a member of the IMT. They're the only people who call themselves that. They have quite a bit of issues with it. They say that not only is this not Marxist, it's legitimately impossible to implement. How are you going to do land back in a country where indigenous population is about 3% of the total? Okay, Huey P. Newton actually had an answer to that. He told us not to worry about being 10% of the population. Well, right now we're 13, 14% of our indigenous comrades make up another 3%, like this idiot said. And then we have our Latino comrades who, of course, are going to be split, but many of them will also fight for revolution. Malcolm and Huey and every other black revolutionary taught us not to view ourselves as minorities, okay? Because we are still part of the global majority. Mao said that in his time that Asia, Latin America, and Africa were ripe for revolution because the contradictions there had come to a head. He also taught us to think of ourselves as part of the global majority. New Zealand, Australia, Europe, and North America, these people, these settlers, or these people who sent settlers, these are the minority of the world. Okay, they will be easily defeated if we get our shit together. So we should not worry about settlers bringing out percentages. Oh, you guys are so small. No, because we have Native Americans are 10% of the United States population. Mao was always right. Well, actually, we should not say that. Mao was wrong on a lot of things. Also, yes, I shaved my beard off, so for a couple days, I'm going to be looking like a horrible fucking rotund brown egg. Anyways, but I shouldn't say that I was like shocked at what I read in response to my tweet, but like I mean, just the vitriol. These people call themselves communists. These people fancy themselves revolutionaries, but this is how they behave. Like, I've heard some fucked up, racist, Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump style shit. That's why, this is exactly why a lot of indigenous people in the American Indian movement really didn't have all that much side for Marxism, because these settlers treated them, they treated their religion, they treated their land claims, they treated their ceremony like shit. Then you have other trots that are saying, this is all such silly nonsense. Not even to mention that, where's the supposed gigantic settler population? Where are the economic relations to back it up? It's the liberal position, just replacing people in power with other people and hoping class interests will wither. Obviously, we're trying to turn every indigenous person into a large landlord. Socializing the land is the way forward. So basically, you have all of these white people making arguments in support of their continued holding of the land. And most of these people seem to be trots. With that logic, Latin America can become socialist. Hamsick accounts trying to go 5 minutes without making a blood and soil argument. Look at this flag array. You've got America, you've got Ukraine, and you've got Palestine. Most anti-worker, anti-Marxist shit I've read all day. Absolutely garbage philosophy meant to appeal to petty bourgeois socialists instead of the working class. Okay, are indigenous people not part of the working class? Are black people not part of the working class? Are Latino people not part of the working class? If you read Settlers, like I constantly advise these imbeciles to do, like Sakai talks about, like, these people, these oppressed, these colonized nations really comprised almost the majority, not just the majority, almost the entirety of the American proletariat for most of this country's existence. People read this as saying that Sakai, and people who acknowledge that Sakai was correct on most things, are saying that people who make these arguments to say that there is no white proletariat. First of all, we need to get off this constant centering of white people. Okay, like, white people are not even going to be a majority in this country anymore by the year like 2050. Okay, and again, we're still part of the global proletariat. So this whole centering of white people, it's because most of the left is still, unfortunately, made up of settlers. Does this mean that I despise my white followers? Absolutely not. I love all you guys. But, like, you all are responsible for a lot of the bastardization and settlerification of revolutionary Marxism. The only time that revolutionary Marxism has actually, like, taken hold and changed history outside of Russia was when black and brown people picked it up. Vietnam, China, India, the Philippines, Mozambique, South Africa, Angola, Guinea-Bissau. All of these countries, like, these are not white countries. Peru is not a white country. They have small settler Spaniard or Portuguese or whatever ruling classes, but these are majority black and brown countries. Why are black and brown people so quick to pick up Marxism? Because it speaks to our material conditions, but we also have enhanced it by applying it to our own material conditions. Remember when American Johnson of Non-Compete brought this guy on his channel to meet his self-imposed diversity quota? I remember. I actually liked that. I enjoyed that conversation. American's a good guy. I like Luna Oi too, even though she unfollowed me. But yeah, it's just like page after page after page of all this shit. Jerry Krautfritz, well, a German never really has had anything positive to say, or anything good to say. Well, I guess Marx and Engels were technically Germans, but whatever. By this logic, socialism will not exist anywhere ever. All land has been stolen. All land has blood on it. Like, these are reactionary conservative arguments. And it goes on and on and on, and I don't want to torture you all by reading all that shit. Here's Malcolm X on liberals again.
Going under the label of liberal. There are many whites who are trying to solve the problem.
I love how back in the day everybody pronounced it whites.
But you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere.
I love throwing this in the face of like Democrats and liberals who always say that, oh, well, Trump is worse. Like, worse for who? He's louder. He's more honest. He's more bombastic. Like, it's the old comparison. Would you rather have the wolf or would you rather have the fox? I would honestly rather have the wolf because I know where the wolf is coming from. I know where the fox is coming from too, but he always, like, he's very good at fooling and conning people. Like, we saw Sean Fain endorse Biden the other day. Even though his union has endorsed the ceasefire, you have this guy who's being paraded as a revolutionary progressive union leader, very first in a very long time. And he punked out. He cucked out. This just shows that, like, trade unionism, industrial unionism in this country, in the imperialist metropole, like, it has its limitations. Do I think that Sean Fain is an evil person? No. But I think that he's still yielding to pressure like he is he's a labor aristocrat. He's still part of the class that serves to build peace between the ruling class, between the working class, the upper echelons of the industrial proletariat, if you will. And that's fucked up. I think that he's a genuine guy, but at the same time, like, we have to keep these limitations in mind when we listen to these people talk, and we shouldn't really put too much faith in old white labor leaders. I'm sorry.
He's the most deceitful.
Malcolm X hated his red hair because it came from his mother being the product of rape by a Scottish man on his grandmother.
He's like a fox.
Who is the worst 21st century U.S. president? Probably Bush, because he's responsible for the Patriot Act, wars in Iraq, the destabilization of the Middle East. He got a lot of stupid shit off.
And a fox is always.
So weird that you have racism in USA. I come from Turkey and we have no problems with black people. And it's funny because, like, the Turks, they had black slaves too. Like the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, like, he had black eunuchs that were working in his harem, if I believe. They had white viziers and they had black viziers. And of course, there was still, like, a cultural difference, but y'all had slavery there too. Well, honestly, I would prefer a religion without slavery, but yeah, it is radically different. But in the United States was a country that was literally built almost entirely by slavery. So, and it was a racialized slavery.
He's more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to. But the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling. You take him for. There are many whites who.
So do not be fooled by the smiles of the wolf. Speaking of the smiles of the wolf, here's another wolf, a young wolf, not Rob Stark, AOC, a member of my political organization. And, like, people, they always kill me. They're like, you're a member of AOC's formation. Like, why are you criticizing her? Because, like, there is nothing in DSA's documents. Like, we are not a democratic centralist organization. Okay, as long as, like, I'm not a fascist, like, I can say whatever the fuck I want. That's part of the beauty of being in an organization that doesn't, like, chain you down like that. But a communist party should still be a democratic centralist party, but DSA is not a communist party and doesn't claim to be one. It's a democratic socialist party, so I have the right to say certain things that I could not say if I was in a formation such as PSL or the CPUSA or Frizzo or what have you. So, fuck AOC. She's a sellout. She's always been a sellout. And she's basically Puerto Rican Nancy Pelosi. Why is she Puerto Rican Nancy Pelosi? Well, first, she has been glazing Biden up all fucking week. Why do people keep asking me this? Fuck PSL.
Campaign rallies this week were interrupted more than a dozen times by protesters calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, even unfurling a banner reading, quote, Genocide Joe. Now some of President Biden's senior aides are becoming increasingly concerned his support for Israel's war in Gaza is damaging his re-election effort, with cratering support from progressives and particularly young voters. Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Congresswoman, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we really appreciate your being here. We are going to get to the situation in the Middle East in just a moment, but I do want to ask you about the president's reelection campaign. As you know, in some of these key battleground states, he has some real vulnerabilities. Why do you think
Oh, no shit. I'm surprised that they're admitting it.
he is struggling against former?
He's struggling because he is alienating a substantial, like, people don't understand this, but like working class Arabs, working class black people, like, we used to go like all in for the Democrats. All in for the Democrats. Especially in like Michigan, you've got a lot of Palestinian UAW members, a lot of Palestinian industrial proletariats. And these people are seeing their families getting murdered in the West Bank, or seeing their families getting murdered in Gaza. And like, this is all you can fucking do. Like, you just mealy mouth and talk out of both sides of your fucking mouth as people are being murdered. You're continuing to fund Israel's genocide. Actually, I saw something earlier about like they're slowing down. How the fuck do you slow down a genocide? We're going to send you 9,999 bombs instead of 10,000. That's slowing it down. And that's the thing, like, people are bending themselves over backwards. Like, and they're trying so hard to justify their opportunism, to justify the fact that they cannot see any alternative to this fucked up one-party system that we live in, because we only have one party in this country, the party of the rich, the party of the white supremacists, the party of the fascists, left-wing and right-wing fascists. Like, they cannot, in their little pea brains, they cannot comprehend that we do not have to live this way. We do not have to live this way. A better way is possible. But Americans are notoriously stubborn and hard-headed people. I know this because I'm an American myself, and I'm notoriously stubborn and hard-headed. So Americans have to be shown things. You cannot preach theory to Americans. Americans, as Huey said, are not a reading people. Americans have to be shown things. We're pragmatists. We're practical people. So, of course, Americans are going to they're going to delude themselves, because they've never really seen like socialism in this country. We've never had any socialism in this country. We've never done any like socialist experiments in this country. We think socialism is something that happens in Russia or in China and poor third world countries. We think that it doesn't apply here. So, of course, AOC is going to smuggle her bourgeois crap into what supposedly is the socialist movement. Why? Because we have to demonstrate to people that, hey, we can do something better. That's why political education is important. That's why talking to your coworkers is important. Socialism still equals Social Security in America.
President Donald Trump, someone who's been indicted 4 times and who's now been slapped with this $83 million civil suit.
Well, I think we can take a look at the overall landscape here. It's not just what we're talking about with President Biden, but former President Trump also has extraordinary vulnerabilities. We saw that in New Hampshire. The fact that he is...
What do you mean extraordinary vulnerabilities? Okay, New Hampshire is just one little bitty ass state. Wait till he hits the South. Okay, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida. DeSantis dropped out. So Trump is going to sweep the fucking nomination. Trump is going to sweep the fucking White House. Why? Because you all insist, like, why don't they replace Biden? Like, this guy's old. This guy doesn't know how to give a fucking speech. His speeches keep getting interrupted. He's stubborn. He's hard-headed. He continues to back an increasingly unpopular Israeli genocide. Nobody likes him. His approval rating is like the lowest of any president this century at this point in his term. Like, nobody likes this man. But you all insist on running them. Why aren't you all, why haven't you all opened a primary? Isn't this supposed to be a fucking democracy? Like, you all are literally the Democrats. Why don't you, actually allow an open field? Why don't you? Like, this is easily the most primariable president in living memory. But you all are hard-headed. It's like you all want to lose. And when the Democrats lose in November, it's not going to be my fault because I didn't vote. I live in Missouri. Missouri is a red state. St. Louis, Columbia, Springfield, Kansas City. You've got 4 little blue oases here, but the rest of the state might as well be Arkansas. They're not putting any effort into making the Democrats attractive. Like, you really think these Zoomers, people my age, like you really think 20-somethings, people who are just voting for the first time, 18-year-olds and early 30-somethings, like, you really think that we're going to get excited about Joe Biden? Of course, like, wannabe AOCs, they're getting excited. Democratic Party staffers are getting excited because this is their job. But like regular, ordinary, average, everyday, working class people, why would they get excited about Joe Biden? And a Democratic strategist with a brain would recognize this and be like, hey, we need to run somebody else. Sorry, Joe. Like, how the fuck do you think Bill Clinton, like, Democrats used to, like, win elections? Democrats actually used to win. Not by these razor-thin margins either. Like, look at Bill Clinton in 92. In 96, the most popular president in my lifetime. Yeah, he was a fuck. He was still president of the United States. But, like, people are nostalgic for that guy. Who's going to be nostalgic for Joe Biden? Shit. Or Obama. People are nostalgic for the Obama era. Nobody's going to be nostalgic for the Biden era. Are people nostalgic for the Carter era? I'm still surprised that motherfucker is alive. But, like, come on. Like, where are the people with clarity? Where are the people with vision? That's why they're losing. That's why they're going to lose in November. It's going to be all their fault because they don't fucking listen.
A former sitting president, head of his party, virtually everyone else has dropped out and endorsed him. And still, as we just saw, Nikki Haley came, she cleared about 43% in New Hampshire, bodes very not well for Donald Trump and his ability to win a general election. When it comes to president,
this lady is Delulu.
Going to be about the coalition we can put together and the policy progress we can make between now and then.
And do you think President Biden is the strongest person to take on former President Trump?
Jimmy Carter is still alive.
Given everything you've just said, Congresswoman?
I think what we have right now, what we've seen in New Hampshire, he is virtually the nominee of the party. His turnout in New Hampshire is actually not something to ignore. We saw...
Look at this. Delusional.
From a write-in campaign. Remember, President Biden wasn't even on the ballot in New Hampshire. He won overwhelmingly with turnout that even exceeded Obama 2012 turnout when Obama was
mid-OC
on the ballot. And so there are quite a few indicators in his strength in New Hampshire. We will see what happens in South Carolina and, of course, when we get to important primaries like Michigan.
So, and just to be clear, though, do you think the president's the strongest person to take on Mr. Trump if he is the nominee? It's still an if.
Yes. And I mean, especially when we look at this field, we have, Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson. President Biden, I think without question, among that field is the strongest nominee.
You have said in the past, it's not just enough for Democrats to talk about what they are running against. You want the president to be talking about what he's running for. Do you think?
Wait, so I'm looking at this Project 2025 thing. It's like they've basically laid out a plan for, looks like every fucking thing. And this is apparently through the I'm gonna have to sit down and read this, but this is through the Heritage Foundation. Like they've laid out a fucking reactionary program. What's next? So they gotta have like a fucking reactionary communist party? Jesus Christ! Oh, you're on vacation. Where'd you go? Did you go to Yemen? Yeah, I'm gonna have to sit down and read this. This is some fascinating shit. 180-day playbook. Fascinating. It's always good to see what the enemy is planning. Thank you for calling my attention to that, whoever did that.
In this very moment, President Biden is doing a good enough job explaining to voters why they should vote for him. And
the man can't even talk. What do you mean he's doing a good thing? Bruh. Both of these people are delusional. Merida, Yucatan, Mexico. Hope you enjoy.
And not just against former President Trump.
I think we can
Yemen would still be a lot cooler, though.
certainly do more to be advancing.
But if I recall correctly, Nate, your family roots are in Mexico, so I imagine it's nice to visit your homeland.
Our vision. And I believe that we have a strong vision that we can run on. You know, I think, and for what it's worth, the president has said, if you give me the House and if you give me the Senate and reelect me to the presidency, we will codify abortion rights and the
No, you're not.
right to choose in this country. We'll codify reproductive rights. I think we can do more. I think we need to be talking more about health care. Of course, me as a progressive, I want to.
You're not a progressive. You're not a progressive. You're a center-rightist. That's what you are. You're an insult to DSA.
See the age of Medicare drop, whether it's to 50, as the president has discussed earlier, or to 0, as is my preference, to extend Medicare to all people in the United States of America. But I believe that we can be doing more. We can talk even more about the fact that public colleges and universities should be tuition-free or reduced. The president has advanced student.
Look at this. It's just fucking concession after concession after concession. Oh, we should have this good thing, but we should also like be realistic. Like, she's been doing this for the past fucking week. Shit, she's been doing this her whole fucking time in Congress. And so many people, so many socialists even, were rooting for her. Finally, we've got somebody that thinks like us in office. And then she fell flat on her fucking face. She never entered her flop era because she was always in her flop era. AOC is a social fascist. You all don't have any idea how much I despise that term. Like, we should have left that in fucking Stalin's tomb. But honestly, in this case, I think that's a good description.
Forgiveness just to be very, very important, as well as really laying out and showing between now and November through our governing decisions. Our governing decisions, when we have that power in the
I'm sorry, listening to you is a pain in my ass. So from the Electric Intifada, AOC does not draw the line of genocide. When she asked if she has had it or would hit it with Biden, Ocasio-Cortez enthusiastically replied with, "Hit it." There are plenty of things that the president does that I completely disagree with, Ocasio-Cortez said, referring to what's happening in Gaza, aka genocide. Like, why are you so afraid to use that word? I thought you were a socialist. I thought you were a revolutionary. I thought that you were going to lead us all to fucking kumbaya land, but you can't even call an obvious genocide a genocide. She continued, I can't go on every single day saying this. I don't associate myself with what's happening, but you're glazing Biden up every single day. Every fucking time you come on TV, you're glazing up this old segregationist bastard. You're a member of his party. You spend more time pushing Joe Biden shit than you do pushing DSA shit. At least Cori Bush, who represents my fucking hometown, has the fortitude to call bullshit bullshit. Like, Cori Bush is literally the left of the squad. AOC is the right of the squad. But at the end of the day, she brushes off her fleeting mention of the Israeli genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. We just can't allow the fascist movement to grow in this country. I don't think she knows what fascism is. I don't think she knows what fascism is. As a matter of fact, fuck what I think. I know she doesn't know what fascism is. Noting the growing momentum of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. If she knew what fascism is, she would neither support Trump or Biden because Biden is also a fascist. Ocasio-Cortez says that the decision to vote for Biden is not a difficult one for me. But again, this is our socialists. This is our socialist. This is our progressive. This is our revolutionary. Just because I'm voting for him doesn't mean that he embodies everything about me. This is the type of person that goes on and on and on about we shouldn't be so caught up on moral purity or principle. Like, yes, what do you have if you don't have any principles? What are your principles? You're the Puerto Rican fucking Nancy Pelosi. That's all. That's all. Like, this man's own people. This man's Irish people, his own fucking people, have denounced him. They want nothing to do with him because he's a genocider. They call him Butcher Biden. They call him Genocide Joe. And all she can fucking do is cry. All she can fucking do is cry. This is also important. 3 U.S. soldiers have been killed and many more have been hurt at a drone attack at a base in Jordan. Why are American soldiers in Jordan? Why are American soldiers anywhere in the Middle East? Like, people keep, oh my God, that's so horrible. Why are our soldiers still occupying the Middle East? Why? Go home. Bring them home. What business do they have over there? Of course they're going to get killed. There's wars going on. And you have Lindsey Graham's stupid ass going like, let's attack Iran. Hit them hard. Like, yeah, let's just start a regional fucking war. You're already fucking with Yemen. You're already fucking with this. You're already fucking with the Palestinian people. You're funding their genocide. Yeah, let's just make it a fucking hat trick. Let's just attack Iran. Let's wrap all this shit up. Because they're gonna fuck us up. They're gonna push our shit in. They did a war game like 10 years ago where they were fighting basically a stand-in for the Iranians. And America lost in almost every scenario.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Frederica Whitfield. We'll join Fareed Zakaria GPS in a moment, but right now we've got this breaking news.
3 U.S. troops killed, at least 24 injured in drone attack in Jordan.
3 U.S. troops were killed and at least 24 more injured in a drone attack on a small U.S. outpost in Jordan near the border with Syria. And
if you follow me, or if you watch me regularly, and you're considering joining the United States military to get free college or a home loan or that fucking Challenger, the Charger that everybody fucking like, don't. Okay? Like, this is going to be your fate. Because this shit is going to be, like, it's going to escalate. It's going to keep happening. And they're going to send your stupid ass to Jordan or Syria or Saudi Arabia or Yemen or one of these places that you can't pronounce, that you didn't even know existed until they send your stupid ass there, and you're going to die. You're going to die. Are you going to have your legs blown off? Or you're going to be traumatized? Or you're going to get a TBI like my brother did? And you're not going to have a good time. You're not going to even be able to drive the fucking Charger because you're a vegetable. You're not going to be able to go to fucking college because you're a vegetable. You don't even remember what you had for breakfast half an hour ago. Don't do it. Don't do it. Let these rich white people fight their own wars. Let these rich white people send their kids, their grandkids, their nephews, their nieces. Stay out of it. Your fight is at home. Okay? Your enemies are at home. The people who are responsible for you getting evicted from your house, they live here. The people who are responsible for you owing $125,000 in student debt that increases even though you pay on it, they live here. The people who have fixed it so that your car got repossessed, the people who work you like a fucking slave on your job, they live here. You want to fight somebody, fight those who are making your life a living hell. Do you know anybody from Jordan? Do you know anybody from fucking Syria? Do you know anybody from Lebanon? Do you know anybody from Iran? Then why the fuck would you support us invading these places? You've never met anybody from these places. You don't know anybody in these places. You don't know how these people live. You don't know why these people hate the United States. Study. Talk to people. Seek out people who have been driven into this shithole because we've made their countries a living hell. And I guarantee you, you will become an anti-imperialist.
Iraq. This is the first time U.S. troops have been killed by enemy fire in the Middle East since the beginning of the war in Gaza, October 7th. It also marks a significant escalation of an already precarious situation in the Middle East. President Biden reacted.
He got a TBI. He joined the Army against my best advice, and he was a mechanic on a Bradley, and he was stationed in Kuwait. And they still don't even know what happened to him. They even tried to attribute sand mites to him. But like, he was in the hospital in Germany, then he was in the hospital in the United States for months. And thankfully he's recovered, but I'm pretty sure he's pretty soured on American imperialism now. As I told him he would be. I told him, you're not going to have a fucking good time. You're not going to have a fucking good time. So he rounded up his contract riding a fucking desk. By the way, BRG, on an unrelated note, since we're talking about the military, I have to ask, what is your opinion on Micah Johnson, the 2016 Dallas shooter? There's a 10-minute mini documentary I saw recently with some of the body cams of the cops, and I thought it was eye-opening what he was saying. I mean, from what I've read about his ideology, he wasn't a communist, he wasn't a socialist, he was a black nationalist. Some people call him a cultural nationalist, but I don't know, people just get tired. Like, if I recall correctly, he had seen service in Afghanistan, and his eyes were open over there. And again, I don't support reactionary terrorism. I don't support anything like that. But at the same time, I wouldn't even consider that an act of reactionary terrorism. I would consider that a black man that got fucking tired of what was going on with his people, and he saw that the marches and protests weren't doing anything. I remember literally when that happened. The marches and protests weren't doing anything. Black people were continuing to get killed. So he decided, you know what? Fuck it. Let's kick this shit off. I don't know if he thought he was going to start a revolution or what, but yeah. People get tired. Would I do something like that? Absolutely not. But do I understand why a black U.S. Army veteran would be inclined to engage in something that would end only in his death? Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I totally get it.
A short time ago, vowing the U.S. will hold those responsible to account. We've got full coverage of this breaking story. Natasha Bertrand is in Washington. Priscilla Alvarez is with.
And the thing about this is, like, Americans, Israelis, like imperialist countries, they cannot stand losing people. Like, we know the names of every Israeli that's been killed in Gaza. We know the name. Well, I don't know if they've released the names of these troops yet, but like, we're going to know the names of these people. Like, what about the almost 30,000 people that have been killed in Gaza? This just shows how they downplay, like, the Palestinians are fucking human beings too. The people that you're bombing and killing and stealing from, these are human fucking beings too. Like, what about their names? I read something that it would take you 27 years to go to the funerals of everybody that's been killed in Gaza. Or it might have just been the kids. But 27 years. I'm 29. So if I started going to funerals when I was 2 years old, I would just now be finished with that.
President Biden in South Carolina, and Ben Wiedemann is in Beirut. So, Natasha, you first. What are we learning about the attack?
It's a very serious moment for the U.S. military, for President Biden, for the administration writ large, because this is the first time that U.S. service members have actually been killed from hostile fire since the war in Gaza began and sparked all of these tensions throughout.
And this wasn't even Iran, by the way. This was the Iraqi resistance. You see the location of where the base was. So the imbeciles are trying to blame this on Iran because they want to provoke Iran and they want to start a war with Iran. They see Iran as being big bad number one. It's not fucking Daesh. It's not Syria. They want to fuck up Iran so bad. And the funny thing is, like, they don't even know if they'll lose a war to Iran.
The Middle East. Now, we're learning that these 3 U.S. service members, they were killed after a drone struck a base in northeast Jordan, right on the border of Syria.
The thing that gets me is, like, America thinks that we're so big and bad just because we have all these, like, fucking weapons and, like, technology and stuff like that. The Iraqi resistance, Hezbollah, Hamas, all these different groups, the Houthis, like, they use this stuff too. Fun fact, Jordan has been bombing Syria because of the drug trade going on, Captagon, so Al-Tanf has been seeing a lot of action lately. Huh. It's interesting. And it's Captagon, is that like meth or something? I heard about that, like, during the Syrian, like, during the salad days of the Syrian civil war. But yeah, apparently it's like a big fucking deal over there. Like, it's fucking everybody up. Just say no, kids.
and it also wounded, we are told now, upwards of 30 other U.S. service members. That number is likely to continue to rise as these service members seek treatment for symptoms that are consistent with traumatic brain injury, according to two U.S. officials that we spoke to in the last hour. Now, this is a really high number of individuals killed and wounded in this kind of attack. Previously, when these kinds of attacks by these Iran-backed militias have occurred, targeting U.S. and coalition bases in Iraq and Syria, there have been a number of injuries.
Pablo Escobar, but he's Syrian. You know, there's actually quite a few Lebanese and Syrian and like Levantine people that live in Colombia. I think Shakira is descended from them.
Injuries, but most of them have been minor, the most extensive of those injuries being traumatic brain injuries, for example. But never before, since these attacks started in October, have we seen U.S. service members actually be killed in one of these drone and rocket attacks that have been launched by these.
I can't listen to these fucking talking heads. I'm not shedding no tears for these soldiers. What the hell are they doing in there in the first place? But like, yeah, like, what are we doing here? Like, if we just remove our troops from this area, if we remove them from this area, if we don't go back over there, then our guys won't be dying. Our girls won't be dying. But because America insists on continuing to prop up this fucking dying empire, yeah, this is going to keep happening. Like I said, stay your ass out of the army. Find something else to do with your time. Hell, go sell crack. Shit. Let's go back to Twitter. Nancy Pelosi belongs in a nursing home, but she's allowed to continue to shuffle her fucking Frankenstein corpse around the United States and say silly things.
My house all the time. So I have a feeling for what feelings they have, but we have to.
How do you justify U.S. presence in the region? It's because the U.S. still hopes to get rid of Assad. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. You're not going to get rid of that dude. Like, that dude, like, I'm not an Assadnik by any stretch of the imagination, but that dude needs props, okay? Like, ain't no way. They've been trying to get rid of this dude. He's like the Fidel Castro of the Middle East. They've been trying to get rid of this dude for a decade. Almost two. And it still hasn't worked. And like, keep in mind, this guy isn't no soldier. He's a fucking ophthalmologist. He's a fucking ophthalmologist. But like, they've tried every trick in the book. They've tried to Fidel Castro this man, and he's still there, giving him a big ass middle finger. Like, I have to give him his props for that. As a black man, I have to.
Think about what we're doing and what we.
Did you hear that the U.S. Navy is now allowing people to join even if they haven't graduated high school? How long until 14-year-olds are in the service? Not long. I mean, there is a precedent for it. America, soon to be using child soldiers. Are we turning into the Houthis?
What we have to do is try to stop the suffering in Gaza.
There's socialist and communist history all over Latin America.
Women and children, people who don't have a place to go. So let's address that. But for them to call for a ceasefire is Mr. Putin's message.
Mr. Putin's message. Like, bruh. Like, they're still dragging out this old-ass canard. Yeah, if you've ever been to a pro-Palestine protest, if you've ever worn a keffiyeh, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Like, so if you've ever been to a pro-Palestinian protest, if you've ever worn a keffiyeh, if you've ever made a pro-Palestinian social media post, you're part of Putin's network.
Mr. Putin's message.
Mr. Putin's message. Why is she doing these weird ads? I understand she's Italian, but stop doing that. It looks like something else.
Make no mistake, this is directly connected to what he would like to see. Same thing with Ukraine. It's about Putin's message. I think some of these protesters are spontaneous and organic and sincere. Some, I think, are connected to Russia. And
There is no evidence of this. There is no evidence whatsoever that Russian agents, Russian money, or Russian anything is tied to any of these protests. Nothing whatsoever. She's literally pulling. This is the former Speaker of the House. The former Speaker of the House, the third most powerful person in the country, rambling like a conspiracy theorist. This country is cooked. I'm sorry, it's cooked. These people should not be governing me. They should not be governing you. Like, shit, we can literally pick one of you random ass chatters and make y'all president, and I guarantee you that y'all could do a better fucking job than these mummies and ghouls. She doesn't have any. She's pulling it completely out of her ass. This lady's on CNN, State of the Union show, lying out of her ass. And this shit is dangerous. Extremely dangerous, because when you have the former Speaker of the House, the former third most powerful person in the country, saying shit like this, repression is going to follow. Repression is going to follow. Now you're going to have, we already have FBI agents showing up to people's houses, knocking on the door, flashing badges. Of course, any communist, any leftist, any socialist with sense knows better than to talk to these people voluntarily or involuntarily. But like, no. And we're supposed to take AOC's word that Trump is somehow like any more fascist than what we're already going through. He's of a different type. But when you have people knocking on doors in a country that supposedly values freedom of speech and comes to harass college students, like, have they arrested those people that sprayed all those kids with skunk spray at Columbia a couple weeks ago? Had they arrested those people? Have they done anything? No, but you have the fucking Speaker of the House who hasn't said anything about that incident. Like, do you have any idea how big that is? Soldiers of a foreign country have attacked American college students on an American campus. Has Nancy Pelosi said anything about the 17-year-old kid from New Orleans who was shot in the head by IDF soldiers in the West Bank last week? Not a fucking word. But this bullshit, Palestinian protesters being connected to Russia. I'm a member of the Jewish Voices for Peace. I could tell by your name, Bundesto one. And this is just slander coming from Pelosi. We are a grassroots organization. Oh, good. So that's what's pretty much going on today. This is interesting and pure. You have Little Miss Flint. You can't count. Making a water filter to help give someone clean water in her city. Know me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And if we were a properly governed country that didn't spend all of our money on stupid wars that get our soldiers killed, this little girl wouldn't have to be doing this. This little girl should be worried about like schoolwork. Should be worried about boyfriend shit. But here she is having to carry her entire town on her back. And I know when I need it, I can count on you. But I highly encourage you all to follow her. She's been wanting more engagement for a while. Her real name is Mary Copeny. And she displays international solidarity. She says that there are millions around the world who don't have access to safe drinking water. This is why I'm starting Wednesdays for Water. Every Wednesday, I will share a place that needs clean water and how you can help. This is international proletarian solidarity. Bigfoot is trending. Hey, Nicki Minaj, take a look at this thread, please. Hey, Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion, I have an idea. Let me introduce myself. I'm married. I'm a 16-year-old from Flint, Michigan. I've been working half of my life to get clean water, not just to Flint, but to hundreds of other communities dealing with the clean water crisis. Hopefully one to the other of them actually put some of their money where their mouth is instead of acting a fucking fool on Twitter all the time. But yeah, sweet girl. I hope she gets all of the support that she needs. This is now airing on CNN. The entire world can see that this is genocide and terrorism from the IDF.
2 dozen men, some of them kneeling, some of them sitting on the ground with Israeli soldiers standing around them. We now know that these men were Palestinians detained by the Israeli military in Gaza and brought to Israel for further questioning. Now,
so what? They're reverse taking hostages now, so it's all right for the Israelis to randomly grab Palestinian men off the fucking streets of Gaza and bring them into Israel. But when the resistance does it, it's war crimes that have to be on a billboard. Like, why aren't these guys going up on any billboards? They're hostages too. They've been kidnapped. And now they're in a fucking foreign country that despises them, that notoriously tortures prisoners. Why don't you put these guys up on fucking billboards? I drive by one of those hostage billboards every day on my way to work. Like, do people not realize that the Palestinians have not hurt a single hostage? The Palestinians have not hurt or mistreated or raped or done anything bad to any of these hostages. All of the hostages that have died because of Israel. Because Israel is bombing them. Israel shot 3 of them that were walking under a white flag because they were wearing Palestinian-style clothes. And, yeah. First of all, I've never been in any military, but I'm pretty sure that it's a war crime to shoot somebody, anybody, that's coming towards you with a white flag. They lied and said that they thought it was a resistance trap. No, you just wanted to be fucking evil. Now you've killed your own people.
look at the video here that we have. These men were blindfolded, they were barefoot, and keep in mind that it was about 50 degrees Fahrenheit during this day, and all they're wearing are these disposable white coveralls.
Is it true that the IDF are executing these Palestinians? Yeah, there have been summary executions in Gaza and the West Bank as well. But yeah, they've been rounding up people and shooting them en masse.
Hands are tied behind their backs, and you can see that many of these men are clearly physically exhausted. Their heads kind of nodding down, bobbing, swaying. One man was lying on the ground before an Israeli soldier comes to rouse him, propping him back up so that he can be sitting on the ground. Now, the Israeli military told us this in a statement saying, quote, the individuals shown on camera are suspected of terrorist activity and were arrested.
So you give them the fucking Abu Ghraib treatment? Does Israel not abide by the time-honored legal principle of innocent until proven guilty?
In Gaza and transferred to Israel for further interrogation. Relevant suspects are taken.
Note they said interrogation, not questioning. Interrogation is a military term. They are treating these people as military prisoners.
Taken for further questioning within Israel. Individuals who are found not to be taking part in terrorist activities are released.
And that is extremely subjective. Like, how do you determine who is taking part in terrorist activities and who is not taking part in terrorist activities? Yeah, Palestinian kids get taken to military courts, so I'm really not surprised. Like, they have broken every war crime statute in the book. If this was a fucking African country, like, they would have been bombed into oblivion, and there would be a UN peacekeeping force governing the country right now.
Back into Gaza as soon as possible. Now, they also addressed the conditions in which we found these detainees, talking about the fact that they were wearing these white coveralls because they had been stripped, their clothing searched to ensure that they were not carrying weapons or explosives, and they said that they would be given clothing once they arrived.
Why don't you just give them their clothes back? Or what? Strip searches are not just to, like, ensure that you're not carrying anything. They're also extremely humiliating, especially in Islamic culture where modesty is valued. And to make these guys undress and take pictures of them and parade them around naked, like, the Israelis know that this is extremely, extremely, extremely humiliating and degrading to these guys. But they don't care. That's an aspect of psychological warfare and torture.
At that detention facility. They also said that when we came across them, that they were about to be put on a heated bus in order to be taken to that detention facility. We weren't able.
Oh, why do these people just lie so much? Like, do they expect this journalist, or do they expect people that are going to watch this to believe this shit?
Able to see exactly how long these men were actually on the ground there for, and that's because an Israeli soldier.
What do you mean, hope I feel better? I cough, you guys think I'm dying?
came to us and demanded that we leave the premises once he saw us filming. Now, as it relates to the Israeli military's claims here that these are terror suspects, it's important to note that we have, while this is the first time that we have been able to unilaterally.
So you agree with these 3 steps: organize collectively to abolish capitalism, try to improve the conditions of the planet, allow worker states to run the means of production. And it's a bit more complicated than that, but in general, sure.
Directly document these detentions. There have been a lot of videos of Palestinian men and boys in Gaza detained by the Israeli military, and in many cases they have proven to be civilians. They have been identified by their friends or relatives in videos as civilians.
So they're just snatching fucking people off the street, torturing them for a little bit, and then releasing them when they feel like it.
We also interviewed 10 Palestinian men and boys back in December who said that they were arrested and detained by the Israeli military for 5 days without charge before being ultimately released. When they were released, those men and boys had swollen wrists, bruises on their wrists in some cases, from the fact that their hands were tied behind their backs for the duration of that detention. Now, the Israeli military, for its part, insists that it proceeds with international.
I'm sorry, I can't hear any more lies from the Israeli military. I gotta rinse my mouth out with some Malcolm. This is my favorite part of this speech, by the way.
I only got a couple more minutes. The white man can never win another war on the ground. His days of war victory, his days of background victory are over. Can I prove it? Yes. Take all the action that's going on this earth right now that he's involved in. Tell me where he's winning. Nowhere. Why, some rice farmers, some rice eaters ran him out of Korea. Yes, they ran him out of Korea. Rice eaters with nothing but gym shoes and a rifle and a bowl of rice. Took him and his tanks and his napalm and all that other action he's supposed to have and ran him across the Yalu. Why? Because the day that he can win on the ground is past. Up in French Indochina, those little peasants. Right.
What do I have to say about Texas? Well, it's Abbott grandstanding, and he knows that Biden is weak at a fucking pushover. Like, Biden has basically unveiled this fucking draconian immigration thing after Abbott did his little stunt. So, like they're talking about federalizing the National Guard. Biden isn't going to do that because he knows that Biden is a lame dunk. Biden is a chump. The Texas National Guard appears to ignore a Supreme Court decision approving the removal of the razor wire barriers and continue construction along the border. Abbott has justified his decision while criticizing Biden for not enforcing immigration laws. Republican governors in several states, this is interesting, have backed Abbott. A lot of southern states and a lot of Midwestern states that are governed by Republicans. Ron DeSantis of Florida, Virginia, Georgia, Oklahoma, and a few others, saying that they're on Abbott's side. So, honestly, I'm pretty sure they planned this shit. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, and Trump have pledged support for Abbott in the newly developing challenge at the U.S.-Mexico border. So he's got some dudes in his corner. He's got some big boys in his corner. But he's been grandstanding on this immigration thing, like, for quite a while.
From the border.
Why? Because he knows that he can hit Biden on it.
In California. Jacqueline, we heard.
But, like, the conditions in which they're forcing these migrants to live is fucking horrible. In my opinion, Biden is probably the most cowardly president in U.S. history. Say what you will about Nixon, Reagan, Clinton, Obama, or even Bush and Trump, but Greg Abbott would be in handcuffs right now if this happened to them. Not really. I would say that he would be in handcuffs, but I definitely would say that their response would be a lot harsher than it has been. For example, Ross Barnett, he decided he wanted to defy the federal government and not let James Meredith attend the University of Mississippi in 1962. So Kennedy basically filled up Mississippi with soldiers. Like, he literally sent troops and marshals and all sorts of people down there. And of course, Ross Barnett cried and he moaned and he whined, but Meredith was still admitted. And there were soldiers on the campus in Oxford, Mississippi for quite a while. So there definitely would have been some troop action. He wouldn't have they wouldn't have let they would have let their fucking border patrol guys get bullied and harassed and told where they can go and where they can't go, because the federal government still has predominance over the states, regardless of what these yahoos down there say. But yeah, cowards. Do you think the right is crazy enough to start conflict or secession? Honestly, certain elements, yeah. Certain elements, yeah. Is Greg Abbott crazy enough? No, because he knows that would end with him at the end of a very short rope. Like that would literally be treason. And from the last time I checked, America still executes people who engage in like open acts of treason. But there's also a lot of military apparatus in the South, and there's a lot of pissed off white people in the South, and a lot of pissed off white people that have guns in the South. So they definitely would have a pretty strong base, at least in the beginning, if they try some stupid shit. But do I think that is going to happen? No, because these people, even though they are very reactionary and very ignorant and despise the federal government, they're also very rich, and they don't want to lose the money that is poured into their state by the federal government. But it's still interesting to watch.
Heard from Jay that if that bill.
And yes, I do have my uniform picked out for when the constitutional crisis / civil war that I've said is not going to happen does happen.
Bill passed, President Biden would shut the border down. What are you learning about the latest apprehensions as President Biden and Texas Governor Greg Abbott remain locked in this bitter dispute?
Lindsay, we're seeing a sharp decline in total apprehensions. Now, the latest data shows that there are about 4,300 apprehensions per day. Compare that to last month, which had nearly 11,000 apprehensions per day, which, by the way, holds a record for the most apprehensions in a month. Border crossings have typically declined immediately after the holiday season, only to rebound around the spring. In Texas, State Attorney General Ken Paxton denying federal Border Patrol agents unrestricted access to Shelby Park, stating they will not allow it to turn into an unofficial port of entry. This after the state seized control of the park to arrest migrants, and a Supreme Court ruling stating those federal agents can cut razor wire installed by the Texas National Guard along the Rio Grande. Now, this continues to be a years-long battle between the federal government and the state of Texas as the state continues to fly and bus thousands of migrants to democratically run cities across the country. Lindsay.
Jacqueline, thank
you. Abbott is just a fucking nut. But he's a clever nut. He knows what he can get away with and what he can't get away with.
Roars took on the might of the French army and ran all the Frenchmen. You remember Dien Bien Phu?
In northwest Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh's Viet Minh forces decisively defeat the French at Dien Bien Phu, a French stronghold besieged by the Vietnamese communists for 57 days.
The same thing happened in Algeria, in Africa. They didn't have anything but a rifle. The French had all these highly mechanized instruments of warfare, but they put some guerrilla action on. And a white man can't fight a guerrilla warfare.
I think the Yugoslavs would beg to differ.
Action takes heart.
But the Yugoslavs are kind of swarthy, so maybe they don't count as white people.
Takes nerve, and he doesn't have that. He's brave when he's got tanks. He's brave when he's got planes. He's brave when he's got bombs. He's brave when he got a whole lot of company along with him. But you take that little man from Africa and
Are you a 5.56 or 7.6? 5.56.
Turn him loose in the woods with a blade. That's all he needs. All he needs is a blade. And when the sun comes down, goes down, and it's dark, it's even Steven.
The Irish count as like POC turned inside out. So another big thing, the UNRWA funds have been frozen. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees because allegedly 12 of its employees, allegedly, mind you, were involved in the October 7th attacks that were led by the resistance. And the United States, Switzerland, Japan, and several other countries have cut off funding for this like very, very important agency that is literally preventing Palestinians from starving and freezing to death. So this agency says that its funding suspension by some of its largest donors would endanger its aid work in Gaza, where famine is setting in as Israel uses food and other life essentials as weapons of war, a war crime. More than 150 of the agency's 13,000 employees in Gaza have been killed since October 7th, the largest loss of staff. These are UN employees, UN officials, during a conflict in the 78-year history of the United Nations. Palestinians who sought protection under the UN flag have been killed as UNRWA facilities have been repeatedly struck. Last week, more than a dozen Palestinians were killed after an Israeli tank fired and hit a building in a UNRWA training compound in Khan Yunis, where 30,000 people were sheltering after being displaced from other areas of Gaza. More than 26,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October 7th, and thousands more are missing under the rubble of destroyed buildings, while many others have starved to death or died of diseases after Israel imposed a complete siege on the territory. In recent days, Israeli protesters blocked aid trucks from delivering urgently needed assistance to these people. How evil do you have to be to block an aid truck? How evil do you have to be? Like, how can you oppose? How can you fight something like this? Look at this. These people are getting toothbrushes, sanitary napkins, tampons. Like, did you know that Palestinian women are currently using scraps, dirty, non-sterile scraps, for feminine hygiene purposes? That could lead to infection. That could lead to a variety of other things that could ultimately lead to death. But Israel has had as a major goal of this bullshit that they've been doing, the defunding of the UNRWA. Why? Because this is a genocidal action. This is a genocidal state. That's what they're doing. They don't want them to have food. They don't want them to have anything. They want them to suffer. They want them to starve, or they want them to leave their country forever so that they can resettle it. But we're supposed to be worried about Palestinian protesters supposedly working with Russia without proof. Like, there's proof of all of this shit that the Zionists are doing. But what does Biden do? What does Trudeau do? What does the Prime Minister of Australia do? Albanese. What does Meloni do? The fascist leader of Italy. They help starve the people to death. They help accelerate the genocide. This is indefensible. And again, if you vote for Biden, AOC, if you vote for Biden, in the off chance that she's watching this, if you vote for Biden, you are contributing to this. You claim that you're upset. You claim that you don't want to be affiliated with this, but you're voting for the guy. You're voting for the guy who voted to do this. Him and his clique. You've got blood on your hands too. And no matter how much soap you use, it will never wash off. No matter how high you rise in the Democratic Party, you're still going to look back when you're Nancy Pelosi's age and think, damn, they thought I was a progressive when they elected me. And here I am, Nancy fucking Pelosi. And I fucked up. All those people, every time I go to the bathroom and look in the mirror, I see them. Hopefully it won't. Back to Twitter. Nancy Pelosi wants the FBI to investigate groups calling for a ceasefire for being connected to Russia. Groups calling for a ceasefire include the Arizona and Texas Democratic parties, 80% of members of her own party, 60% of Americans, thousands of black pastors, Doctors Without Borders, and the United Auto Workers. So I guess all of these people are Russian agents. It's a lot of Russians. But in closing, fools love a fool. Don't be a fool. Read Blood in Our Eye. Blood in My Eye. That's a good book. Black Red Guard. If Nancy Pelosi and AOC wanted to interview you, you would wreck them all uncensored. I would love to see that. They don't want to interview me. They don't want to interview me. They don't want to give people like me no platform. Have I ever watched those U.S. politics no context vids? Yes, I might watch a few tonight.